because if they don't listen and they don't take into consideration the fact that that is the most like hotly contested topic and the most upvoted topic, then they're not really they've already made up their minds, and there's no point in the community ever voicing things out because they'll never listen to it.
There'll be girls across the nation that'll eat this up. Babe, I know that it's your soul, but could you bottle it up? Get down to the heart of it. No, it's my heart. Your shit out of your luck. Don't make me tell you again.
Just in case people are like kind of like curious, like the people that are watching the video, like what are my qualifications for like being able to do like an RO3 review? My name is LF, aka Little Fatty. I am the guild leader and the founder of Dynasty, the Dynasty community. We ended the Pioneer test as the rank 1 guild. The group that completed all the speedrun events in the game itself was from Dynasty as well, right? So I think our community in general, not just myself, probably has a lot of insight into the game since we really dug deep into the game, right? So that's like our qualifications for being able to put out a review based on the game that we experienced and also our thoughts on the AMAs and all that. So I want to speak a little bit on what we've seen, which is the dungeons, right? Dungeons, they're fun for a little bit, right? They're fun for a little bit, but I can tell immediately that they're gonna be boring after like a few weeks because it is pretty standard. It's not that frustrating at all once you figure out how the game kind of like operates, right? I'm not gonna make that as part of like my final review though, because again, that is more of a preference and I want to keep this more objective instead of like, preferential. So I think dungeons, for dungeon lovers, I think that you would love it. They might get a little too easy once people figure them out, but the directions that you're given and the tools that you're given are pretty conducive to a good experience. Encourages people to be a raid leader to make the run smooth, especially with the numerical pings you can place on the ground for some of the bosses, like I think it's Melkor. Melkor is probably one of the best ones that you can use it for. But again, it does get overly simple. And again, I hope that one of the things that they do is they don't force people to have to do dungeons. Like for example, like in BDO, it's like, yeah, the dungeons are one of the like if you do the dungeons, it's like about 30 minutes to an hour of work, and you would get currency equivalent to about like 5 hours or 3 hours of somebody grinding, depending on like what gear score they're at. So it's really efficient for people that love doing dungeons, right? And even people that don't love doing dungeons, it would be nice if they are like very efficient, even though you only do X amount like every week as they proposed. So that would be nice. But I would hate to see these dungeons being like the must-dos, the have-to-dos. I would like to have it be more of a sandbox experience where you can actually grind currency as like in the open world if that's what you prefer, right? Even like PvP way of like grinding currency or something like that, or even life skills. I feel like would be really good. And then maybe the certain gear from dungeons people can sell in the market, and the people who grinded like other ways or other means can purchase those from the marketplace or the vending merchants, or even like by themselves also have something to sell in the market, so that it provides provides like something positive in an economical standpoint. So that would be really nice. So that's my thoughts on the dungeons. I think it's very creative, definitely a unique take. And the fact that they are seasonal is a good thing, because that means that it would spice things up. It just depends on how long each season is, right? It just depends on how long each season is, because again, one of the major things about this is like, for example, TNL, Thorn Liberty. Thorn Liberty, you for months on end you run the same dungeons every single day, and it's such a chore and nobody wants to really do it. It's kind of just like something people do because if you don't do it, you're falling behind. And a lot of the times, around like 2, 3, 4 months in, people are so done with it that they don't even care if they lose progression. They just don't want to do it anymore, right? It's boring. It's really horrible game design to force people to do dungeons, period, but to make them do the same dungeons for months on end is even crazier. So at the very least, the thing that RO3 does good is the fact that they are making it into a seasonal thing, which means that there's in some way, shape, or form they're trying to keep it fresh, which is really nice, which is really good. And I'm pretty sure that people who love dungeons will keep doing it, who will love doing it. Me myself, I'm not much of a dungeon person, but even I would be like, okay, that at least I'm not doing the same 3, 4 dungeons for like 6 months straight, right? But again, depends on how long these seasons are. So that's my thoughts on the dungeons. The thoughts I have right now on Guild League. So the things that we experience, Guild League right now, I think it's amazing, right? Amazing. My fear is that sub battlefield becomes a thing because it's currently part of the UI and also came from Ragnarok Origin, Rue, right? Ragnarok Origin. The problems that would cause is that it forces guilds to have 100% attendance, or they risk losing due to a numbers disadvantage. From a guild leader's perspective, Throne in Liberty being the most recent prime example of why this does not work in the long term, right? The prime reason that this doesn't work in the long term is because it's very taxing on guild leadership, and you have to realize guild leaders, guild officers, they are the main conductors of every single community that's in your game. And if you know MMORPGs, then you know that like a lot of the times, like even when there's like that lull in the middle with MMORPGs, or people are quitting, or people are taking breaks, the one thing that makes them either stay or come back is the community, the people that they know, the friends that they have, probably the same people that would help them when they come back to catch up a little bit, right? So that's the thing. But the reason why Throne in Liberty right now is struggling to, number one, even field like full rosters. Like if you wanna have like a good example that's from my own experience, Dynasty, like definitely like one of the most dominant guilds in the game there at the time. Even we were struggling to have full attendance. The only time where we had 100% attendance, the only time we managed to achieve that was the first castle siege. Before that and after that, it was impossible to have full attendance. Like it was very straining because like you have this full cycle of people that cannot make certain days. They just can't, right? Like people get like either they have a tough schedule, or they just can't make it. Emergency, family emergency, something like that, right? So that's like the biggest thing to me. But luckily enough for you, the best example of why you need to have a roster system where you don't need the full guild to field max numbers is, surprisingly, New World. New World GVGs were very, very good. New World essentially had 100-man guilds, right? But GVGs were only 40v 40, right? So the main thing that New World did was you had a 100-man roster, so you only had to field 40 at a time. And the main thing about like that roster system is that not only could you bring the 40 from your guild, You could also field mercenaries. Like people could merc into your guilds, merc into your fights that are like in New World it was like the same faction or other factions, but in this one it doesn't matter. Even if you don't have a faction system, as long as you have a merc system, you could always pull those numbers. So it was easier even for the smaller guilds to field full rosters for GVG, right? So the strain there for leadership and the need for like a full attendance was way, 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 way less. And so people that, let's say like you have GVGs on, let's say like you have PvP even on like the whole week. Let's say you have that, right? Let's say you have PvP the whole week. The best thing about that is that if somebody works a certain schedule that doesn't allow them to get into these GVGs from Monday to Friday because they work 5 days out of 7, then at the very least, they know that they can participate on Saturdays and Sundays, right? So they don't feel like they miss out, because if the GVGs are only ever on Tuesdays and Thursdays and they can't make either of those days, that feels really bad, right? Or even you don't even have to make it like every night. You could make it Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or something like that, right? And they can make it, which is fine. But the most important part is that out of like 100-man roster, you only need to field 40. And the fact that there's also like a mercenary like system or a war hero system that you can bring people in, that would be incredibly amazing. The problem is that if you bring the sub battlefield, when it gets to it, it becomes incredibly problematic, because if it's anything like Ru, which I've checked out the UI for the Guild League, and it's very similar. So these are like very high, mid to high impact skills that you get when you get like a certain morale, and obviously you also get buffs for having high morale in the sub battlefield. The problem with that is with how crucial these buffs are. If your sub battlefield is, let's say like you have a 100-man guild, 40 of them are in the main battlefield, that means that 60, you can field up to 60 in the sub battlefield. It's impossible. It's impossible for these guilds to field a full roster every single time. It's just not viable. So that's the tough part about like adding a sub battlefield. So that's one of the reasons why I would rather not like have this sub battlefield. Like, yes, it's a pretty interesting concept, surely, yeah, right? It's a nice concept, but in practice, it just doesn't work. It's too much strain on leadership. It's too much like frustration on the side of leadership and the players themselves, because like nobody wants to go into a fight in a sub battlefield when you're like 20 people down. Like you just don't win that, right? And the thing is, like, even if you limit the sub battlefield, you also have to realize that, let's say like you limit the sub battlefield to 20 players or even like 40 players, right? Something like that. That's like 20 to 40 people, if not more, that you have to field every single fight. In the long term, what that does is every guild has to field that many, and they have to maintain that many. And unless the game is a smash success where it has such crazy longevity, it's just not possible. It's too much, and like guilds are gonna be trying to fill up their rosters and everything. It's just, yeah, it's impossible to maintain. It's a nice idea in theory, but in practice it just has never worked. You're gonna burn out leadership in these games. You're gonna burn out players in these games, and especially leadership. Like you can see Throne of Liberty right now, it's incredibly hard to field to have like a lot of guilds right now. There's you could probably count on one hand the remaining guilds that are actually able to compete in these like GVGs in these games, right? So yeah, that's my thought on Guild League. Everything else though so far that I've seen, that I've played, it has been amazing. It's not the most micro-centric game, obviously, just to a certain degree, right? Like there's certain things that you could min-max on your class, but for the most part, it's very macro-centric, which is, it's not a bad thing either, right? Very distinct to like that R1 playstyle, and I personally love it myself. I like macro-centric play. There's that for Guild League. And the other thing that we got to experience in this one is the MVPing. MVP, very underwhelming. Rewards were not the best. Obviously, that could change, right? Obviously, that could change since this was only the pioneer testing. But my biggest issue was the scale of the MVPs. When I say scale, I mean like the size of it, right? Like so when you would like go up against like Edga or Orc Hero or Orc Lord in R1, they felt very daunting when you first encountered them, right? Like they have this the scale that they have compared to your size, for example, is very threatening. I think that I think like games like actually this is something that Rue kind of like got down really well is the scale of the MVPs, where they need to be these big bads, right? Obviously not like deviling or angeling or anything like that. Well, possibly. So you never know. But like the scale of them needs to be much bigger, like at least like twice the size that they are now. Because right now it's like when I go over to Orc Village and I try to kill Orc Lord, or Orc Hero, it's like, bro, I'm fighting a midget right now. You know what I mean? It's yeah, it's just not. It just doesn't give you that same feeling. So yeah, there's that. That's my issue with MVPs. Besides that, that's about the only thing I can say about that right now. These are the things that are in the game, right? I know people want to talk about monetization. We're not going to cover monetization because we actually have no idea. They currently have multiple builds, and each build will have its own monetization catered to it. So can't really speak on that right now unless we actually see it. Again, people will say it's probably going to be pay to win. Is it most likely going to be pay to win? Well, it's Gravity, so what do you expect, right? But at the same time, I want this review to be more objective in the sense that I'm going to be judging off of like what I've seen, what I've experienced, and what is actually currently present for us to experience, right? Like what Tim's saying, essentially, right? The best part about the bosses dropping something rare at that point in time is because like when that like headgear drops, when that card drops and you see it on the ground and you're like and then you just what I mean, like you just try to like spam click it on the ground because like, oh, please let this be mine, please let this be mine, right? Like something like that, like that's insanely good. And it's that's like that dopamine hit that you get, right? So that should be something that they should be catering to. In terms of stuff that wasn't in the game but was discussed by the AMAs, there are certain things that concern me. And this is my impression of the game so far and the AMAs that we've gotten is I feel like there's very little direction towards the game right now that's conducive to a good game. And I'm not saying like what I think is a good game. I'm not saying like what my preference is for a game. Again, we're trying to be objective here. I'm saying like historically what has worked and what has not worked for not just RO1 but also the other games out there that have either succeeded or flopped, and there's a lot of them, right? There's a saying, right? A game for everyone is a game for no one. And that's what I feel about RO3 right now. It feels to me that the devs, or just the team in general, wants to cater to. They want to cater to the mobile crowd, and they want to cater to the PC crowd. But the thing is, like, in order to cater to the mobile crowd, you have to take away from the experience of the PC crowd. And if you're trying to cater towards the PC crowd, you're gonna take away something from the mobile crowd. Sure, there might be like some in between there, which is like your quote unquote your best case scenario, but it's not gonna be the best scenario, right? For either side. Just by that alone, you're going to lose either a huge chunk of the PC player base or the mobile player base or both, right? So that's the conundrum that you have there if you're trying to cater to both, which is not possible. Main thing that I have concern about, obviously, a lot of you guys already know, is the auto system, the auto grinding system. Now, when I say auto grinding system, I mean auto grinding, as in like out in the open world, farming these mobs, 24/7 farming these the materials that are supposed to be something that is, again, something that people should be working for, right? The best thing about RO1 and a lot of like the old school classic games, and people can't even say that, oh, like those are old games, they're not going to be successful in this time and age, right? But again, do you know why Blizzard has to shut down all of these classic WoW servers? Because funnily enough, the thing that people ask for in the classic experience, the thing that people and players know for a fact that they loved about a game, they're present in those servers and not in the official servers. Right? It's not even because they can't afford to buy a membership or subscription or anything like that. As a matter of fact, they're probably spending more money in these servers than anywhere else. Than an actual like than actual like they would if they were playing WoW official servers. Is because these were made by players for players, and obviously that pulls numbers. In terms of like the manual play, again, a special mention again to like Spirit Veil. Spirit Veil, I think, captures what RO1 did really well and then built upon it, right? Now, obviously, is Spirit Veil going to be able to pull the same RO crowd? To some degree, yes, obviously. But it's, again, it's the same issue that Tree of Savior had, where, yes, you are an RO like game, but you're not Ragnarok. The name Ragnarok alone holds a lot of power, which is why it's so frustrating how horribly Gravity has not been able to capture what made RO1 great that still works to this day, and we know that it works for a fact because, like, again, no shade to old school RuneScape, but obviously old school RuneScape for a reason right now is successful, is because number one, the devs understood what made their game good and what made people like playing it. Number two, they legit listened to their player base. That old school RuneScape, they have like polls for what updates people want to see, and this is really good because your player base cannot complain if they were the ones who asked for it. And people that say they didn't ask for it, if they didn't vote, then that's on them as well, right? So you put the onus on your community, and that's one of the reasons why, like, if you look at the Google Trends, if you look at the player base, old school RuneScape is like bouncing up and down between like number one, number two, number one, number two. I think currently right now, this month, WoW is still number one. Old school RuneScape's at number two right now, but still, right? For a game that old, for a game that had objectively worse graphics than Ragnarok and a lot of games out there. I mean, there's a reason why it's that successful, and I think that Ragnarok 3 can have that same success because of the fact that the game itself, much like old school RuneScape, is not too heavy on your PC, right? So that's like the upper hand that it has right now. And despite that, it still looks gorgeous. Right? I think that's like the main thing about like RO3 and like the automated grindings thing. Again, you could have not so invasive ways of, you know, automating like currency income for like the casual players, right? BDO does a really good job of it. They go for like the auto fishing route. That means that, like, hey, in the shores of like this city, people that are fishing there, a lot of them are AFK fishing. So what that does is, number one, they would be able to sell those fish for currency, which is, like a 24 hour, like, 24 hours, 12 hours, 13, 14 hours of auto fishing is basically equivalent to like 1 hour of grinding, right? So it's not a lot, but it's something, so that the casual players can still, even if they're not doing anything that day, can still have some type of income. And what this does is it doesn't clog up the game world, right? So active players that want to enjoy the content and want to enjoy the game are not having to deal with bots, essentially. And number three, they're not farming in the open world for materials, and so there is no 24/7 machine of thousands of people farming the same materials and thus diluting the market and making it so the economy is just cooked, right? Like we've seen that in, like, for example, like ROM C right now. ROM C technically is a regulated market, and there's caps to it, and the economy's still cooked. And if you're gonna put that into something like RO3, where it's not capped, there's player-to-player trading, the amount of RMTing that's gonna happen in that game in some way, shape, or form is going to be insane. It's gonna be insane. But the problem is, you ask anybody who likes auto and ask them, okay, what does auto do that is conducive to a good and healthy game, objectively speaking? Because, and the reason why we asked this question is because the devs themselves said that we want this game to last for 20 plus years. We want it to survive and thrive for 20 plus years. Will never happen because even in a regulated market, the economy still gets so insanely screwed that anybody who's coming in is essentially set up for failure, right? So it's hard enough to have a stable and good catch up system that's systematically within the game. It's even harder when a new player comes in and they can't even afford anything. Because number one, they're earning less stuff is selling because the market's so saturated. And number two, right, they just can't afford anything. They can't sell anything, they can't afford anything. So that's a horrible experience for games like this, right? And yeah, that's essentially it. Right? There's a lot of other things that I could tackle that are part of the AMAs. My only hopes for the game right now is the fact that they say that they're listening, but right now one of the most upvoted threads in the Discord is the anti auto grinding movement that we're fighting for at this point in time. So what that means is that if they don't do anything about it, then the whole we're listening thing, it's all moot. It's there's no point to it. Because if they don't listen and they don't take into consideration the fact that that is the most like hotly contested topic and the most upvoted topic, then they're not really they've already made up their minds and there's no point in the community ever voicing things out because they'll never listen to it.
These niggas talking out of their